How you guys doing? Welcome back to Junks Automotive and the never-ending MGA restoration. Electrical, wiring diagrams. I mean, just take a quick look at that. Oh yeah? Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. But it's helpful. It's a good tool. I'm going to show you how we're going to decipher some of that and get this thing on down the road someday. But let's get at this wiring and we'll show you a bunch of tricks how to do stuff the correct way, because there's stuff I know how to do it correctly and how you shouldn't do it, right? So let's get at it. Welcome back. It's good to see you. Let's get your working clothes on. You guys always come dressed up. For you guys that are following along, this is how we left it. I need to take it back down and be able to hold it and figure out where all our wires go and get everything hooked up best we can. And usually they say you sit in the seat. Well, we don't have any seats. And put it on your lap and hook everything up. Well, I've got to come up with something different because I never do things like anybody else. You guys are aware. So we'll come up with some kind of hanging situation that'll hold it in place for us so we can spend about the next 8 hours figuring out where everything goes. All right, let's see. Well, there's that. Just a little bit of cotton rope. Unless we get to going a bunch of like that, we're not going to scratch it up. That'll be fine. Got a little shifter interference, so just put a little shifter protector dash not scratcher deal. Okay. Then we got a whole bunch of loose wires. The only thing hooked up, I believe, is the horn. Fuel gauge. John Clark. Thanks again, buddy. I don't know if he just knew or he did the research, but I Googled and could not find one. And he sent me a link, said, try here. So it's the proper gauge with the new sending unit that matches the gauge. So we're going to take this off and put it in the box of junk. And we'll wait for that to show up. It's in America from the good old UK. So thanks, John. All right, back to the stuff. So there's lots of light bulbs. You can tell they're light bulbs by that, okay? So I think that's the first thing because it's the easiest thing. So we're going to look at where do these go. Well, if you look at our dashboard diagram, it says dash panel number 44. Dash panel. Look, number 44, and a bunch of 44s go to our dimmer switch, which is right here. So number 44, we look over here to decipher. Where's 44? 44. Red with white. So red with white is all our panel lamps. So I need to space them out. We know that this goes on one side. Remember the right there? And then it's got a 41 on the other side of the switch. And 41 is red. Okay. So one side is this, and the other side will be red. Let's hope. Now we're going to verify a bunch of stuff before we go plugging a battery in and starting stuff on fire, because we've come too far to set it on fire. But these connectors, of course, are different than here. But I believe I'll be able to unscrew, put this in there or underneath it. And if not, we'll just have to change this connector to a spade connector because there's a bunch of spade connectors. Let me get that figured out. I do have some light bulbs. The originals were screw-in kind, and these are the kind you push in and turn. So I have a bunch of the different push in and turn light bulbs. Some bigger ones and shorter ones. The shorter ones will have to go in certain places like here. I think this is a like accessory, or one's bright lights and one's power, right? So you only have so much room in there, so you got to use a small one. But we'll get all that figured out. Let me figure out this part, get these hooked up, and then we'll figure out where all these go. Well, so you guys know, I did get the wrong kind of light bulbs, and nobody in the tri-state area has them because I drove around looking. These are the kind that screw in. Yes, I know that now. We'll do that later. So back on the lighting part of it, here's our ignition switch. So one side of the ignition switch takes our brown with blue wire, which is here. It jumps over here to our lighting switch, which also takes the wires to the rest of the harness so the lights work. Now, this ignition switch is a little different. It should be the kind that goes in, you screw it down. And any of those, you want to put dielectric grease, as soon as I find it, on any of that, okay? Because you're going to seal that up with your dielectric grease. It's going to promote continuity and you know, make the electricity go a little bit better. So I need a spade connector to go from this to here. What I don't want you to do, and you never should do, in my opinion, is use one of those connectors. It's the kind you push on there and you crimp it and you're done. Slide it on there. We're not going to do it that way. If you have to, use that, but cut the plastic off, and you'll have a little hole where you can put your wire through, crimp it, and then solder it. I have some of these. They're meant for putting in connectors and all that, but they're great. So what I'm going to do is use maybe I'm going to crimp her on there. Oop. First, we're going to slide her heat shrink. This is double-walled heat shrink. You put that on your wire first, because once you make your connection, you can't. So we're going to heat shrink this up here. And I'm pretty sure, yes, I should be able to get it over that whole connector. It'll isolate it from anything else, and it will be quite custom. And it's hard to show you what I'm doing here. These are the proper crimpers. If I can get it in here. Let me try to get it started a little bit. My eyes just don't like anything I'm doing currently. That's all I did, was crimp it on there. Not real tight, just enough to hold it, because our solder is going to carry the weight, not the crimp. That'll work just fine. So, let me zoom you in here. I know, you guys hate this kind of stuff, and I do too. Soldering gun. I can use my Bic lighter, which is normally what I would do. There's that tip of that soldering iron. I'm gonna get a little bit of, just a little bit of solder, because it'll help transfer the heat quite a bit faster. I can get it started. If I was using a Bic lighter, it would be done already. There it goes. Watch where you lay that soldering iron down, so you can see that now. You know, I don't know if I'm autofocusing good enough or not, but that's soldered on there, and that's not gonna fail. And especially when we slide our heat shrink tubing right over it, maybe as far as we can get it. Okay. Now, you should use a heat gun. I have a heat gun, but I didn't get it out. You can use a Bic lighter, use a candle, use a match. You just want to heat that up. You don't want to burn it. And that's going to be a permanent connection. The only place it can fail is if this gets corroded, okay? But it's not going to, because we're going to use, there you go, your dielectric grease. Let me get these a couple more of these done, get them hooked up, and I'll show you closer. You know, the filming skills around here are awesome, aren't they? Yeah, okay. All right, hard for you to see, I know. Hard for me to see, trust me. So here's our ignition switch. It's just an on and off switch, so which side doesn't matter so long as the correct wire colors are together. So you have 36, gets a feed over to the headlight switch, which feeds our lights. The other side of the 36 goes to our voltage regulator. So that tells me that's a power feed to the ignition switch. Okay. On the outside of the ignition switch is 1 and 9. 1 and 9 is white and blue. So they have two whites. One goes to the coil, which I believe is this one. This one goes to the fuel pump. And blue goes to the dimmer switch. So we'll have power to our headlights all the time. Turn them off and on, whatever. The dimmer switch apparently does not get power until after, which, you know, really I could put blue. It's really how you ever wanted to wire it. See, that looks like a 1 and a 9 are on this side. Now I know the 1 is going to be on the outside of the switch when it's closed and power is going through it. 9, which 1 is blue, right? Yeah. 1 is blue. So really, it'll probably keep the lights from working. The dash lights and parking lights might, but the headlights would shut off with the ignition key off. Makes sense to me. You could leave them on, but I bet it's made that way so that all, you know, parking lights and dash lights and all that would stay on with the key off, but the headlights would shut off. So we're going to go with that for now. But I'm getting ready to heat shrink that. It's soldered, nice and neat, just like these are. Well, look, you want to see what the factory ones look like? It's the same thing. And this heat shrink, you can see the little gooey stuff coming out. That is double-walled heat shrink. So what it seals it up inside. All it is like your glue gun, a hot glue gun. It's the same material. If you didn't have double walled, what I would do is get my hot glue gun out and probably put a little bit around there and slide that heat shrink on there and heat it up, and it'll do the same thing. I've done it before. Or you can use your dielectric grease right? And put inside your joint, slide that over, heat it up. It's going to do the same thing. It'll swish it out, but it'll keep it sealed. You don't want your bare copper, and it's bad enough that here. So we got our dielectric grease on our spades to keep a good connection. It'll keep air, most importantly, the moisture in the air from getting between the connection, and it'll hold moisture and cause corrosion, right? Oxidation. Oxidation is rust. Aluminum oxidates. So it rusts. It just doesn't look like rust. It's white. We don't want this to turn green and fuzzy or white and fuzzy. So let me finish heat shrieking that, and we'll move on to some other problem. Hey, guess what? I was wrong. There's our ignition switch. Doesn't that look like a 1? Well, it's not, because that's not a 1. The 1, the blue, actually goes here on the opposite side from your fog light switch. This is 1. This is the outside of the headlight switch, which goes down to our dimmer switch. So I'm going to move it. I'll just cut the end off, right like so. Squirt a little bit of dielectric grease in there, put her on through there, and I'll tighten her up with a screwdriver, of course. See, I'll show you guys all my mistakes. Well, this is sure something else. We got a feed in, you've got parking lights, then you have the feed for your headlights that goes to your dimmer switch. This lug, parking lights, they want you to put all that 4 wires into that little bitty hole, and so I'm not doing that. I can see one big wire, but not one big wire and 3 little ones, because one of them jumps over here to the fog light switch, then goes out to the fog lights, so you can run your fog lights with the parking lights on or not, you know. Then another one goes over here for your map light. Then another one, I forget, oh, it goes over here, your dimmer switch, right? So that feeds all your panel lights. So I'm soldering it together right there. Heat shrink it. Then I'm going to solder to the end of that. Put it in this hole and crank it down. Speaking of splices, please never, never, never use those. Okay? You crimp them, you end up, you don't get good, they won't last. You're going to ask for a fire. Even worse, Scotch lock. Don't use Scotch locks. See that little spade in there? You put the wires together, then you crimp it, and it cuts half the wires off. I've had guys argue with me and argue with me and argue with me that stuff like this works just fine inside of a car because water can't get to it. Oh, crap. I've seen people use wire nuts on cars. Wire nuts belong on your house. Stuff like this is better on your house. Why? Because it stays clean, stays dry, and it doesn't go brrrr every time you're driving the car around, right? Solder. Solder. Get a soldering gun. This is a very high quality old school one that my buddy Craig Small, old Slim from the Punk and Holler Boys, gave me. Man, thanks buddy. This is old school. This is, oh, it's great. And heat shrink with double wall heat shrinking, right? You're never going to have a problem with it. Never, 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 never. I've seen guys twist wires together like that and then heat shrink over top of it thinking that'll be good. No. A year later, it's all fuzzed out and ate up on the inside and no more connection. You add resistance to big wires like this, there's going to be a lot of lights going off of that one circuit. And if you add resistance to it, it's going to start a fire. I don't care what anybody says. Listen to Uncle Mike. This is not a video of how to wire up an MGA because I don't know. It's a GM. It's an MG, not a GM. So this is all weird. But connections I know, right? I soldered these and soldered these because all they do is smash the wires and half the wires get broke off. But I soldered the ends up, make it, and then crud them in there nice and tight with some of course, like I said, dielectric grease. Okay, let me get this done. Rant over. There. That is a wiring repair, a wiring make that is never going to fail. I assume to put a big relay in half of this stuff, but then that's a whole bunch of extra wiring, and we'll just, I don't know. Ralph gets some great big monstrous KC fog lights, that's what we'll have to do. But you know, well, we're getting there. Got that left, and these left, a couple little ones left, and run the map light. I don't have a socket for the map light, so I'm gonna reuse an old one, and it's still in pretty good shape, so it'll work. Yeah, Ralph's girlfriend's not gonna read a map at night anyway. Everybody's got cell phones now. Oh yeah, I gave up. All right, turn you back on when I find something interesting to tell you. Well, there's a few things that I'm not sure about, but mostly everything's there. Once I get the fuel gauge in, get that hooked up, get my cables hooked up, starter cable, choke cable, and I'm probably going to leave this dash like this until we get a battery hooked up and everything else hooked up, just so I can see fires. Say no fire, Scuba.
I don't want any fires.
So, you know, yeah, a whole evening right here. But, you know, it's getting there. Yay. We'll clean it up. It'll look nicer. Maybe. Man, this car needs to be done. Oh, hey, that was embarrassing. You know, got to play around a little bit. We didn't get much accomplished, and we kind of went backwards. You can kind of tell the way it looks. A few more things. It's just one of those things, one of those kind of deals. Don't use Scotch locks. Don't use butt connectors. Use electrical grease and soldering guns and heat shrink. That's the main thing of this. Follow your wiring diagrams. And if you have to and you don't know where stuff goes, an ohm meter. Very, very handy. Like $25. So look, you know, this world's screwed up enough. I hope that we can all help each other out, push each other forward, and don't give me too hard of a time. I don't know what I'm doing. Anyhow, peace. Thanks for coming back. Junks Automotive. Remember, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it. Golly. Scuba, give me a hand. Golly.
Come here, Grandpa.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
All right. There.
Don't put this on YouTube.